In parts of southern Africa, there's an old, simple test for what it means to be human. It isn't about what you own or what you've achieved or how independent you are. It's about how thoroughly you exist through other people. The word for this is Ubuntu, and it might be one of Africa's most influential ideas. It's often translated the same simple way, no matter which language it's spoken in. I am because we are. That single phrase reorders something most people rarely stop to question. Where does a person's identity actually come from in the first place? So here's the real question. Can you really be a full person entirely on your own? Ubuntu's quiet answer is a firm no, and it means that seriously, not poetically. The word traces back to Nguni languages spoken across southern Africa for generations. The fuller phrase is Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. A person is a person through other people. It isn't simply a nice sentiment tucked into greeting cards or motivational posters. It's treated as a genuine description of how humanity actually functions. In this view, you don't arrive at your humanity alone, then later choose to share it. Your humanity is built, piece by piece, through your relationships with everyone around you. Kindness toward others isn't just good behavior. It's treated as literally self-completing. Harming someone else doesn't just hurt them, it's understood to diminish your own humanity too. That reframing changes the entire logic behind fairness, generosity, and everyday conflict. You're not simply being nice when you help a stranger. You're becoming more fully yourself. This idea shapes real, everyday practices, not just abstract philosophy in a classroom. Sharing food with unexpected guests is common and rarely treated as a burden. Raising children is often seen as a shared community task, not just a private family matter. An old related saying puts it plainly: it takes a village to raise a child. Elders are cared for collectively, expected to remain woven into daily community life. None of this is treated as extraordinary generosity. It's simply treated as normal. Conflict resolution, too, looks noticeably different when Ubuntu shapes the underlying approach. Rather than only punishing wrongdoing, many traditional approaches emphasize repairing broken relationships. The goal isn't just consequences for one person. It's restoring balance for the whole community. This philosophy stepped onto a much larger stage during a genuinely difficult period in South African history. As the country worked to move forward from decades of division, it needed a guiding idea. Archbishop Desmond Tutu leaned heavily on Ubuntu while helping guide that national process. He described it simply: my humanity is bound up in yours, whether I recognize that or not. The approach emphasized truth-telling and reconciliation over pure punishment alone. It wasn't about pretending the past hadn't happened. It was about finding a way to move forward together. That framework drew directly on the old idea that harming one person harms everyone's shared humanity. It's a genuinely difficult philosophy to apply at that scale, and nobody claims it solved everything. But it offered a shared language for a nation trying to imagine a future together. Ubuntu didn't stay confined to South Africa, or even to Southern Africa more broadly. Similar concepts appear across the African continent, under different names and slight variations. In Kenya, a related Swahili concept expresses much the same underlying idea. In Zimbabwe, in Botswana, in communities across East Africa, versions of the same thread appear. Businesses and organizations abroad have since borrowed the term, sometimes thoughtfully, sometimes less so. A well-known operating system was named Ubuntu specifically to evoke this spirit of shared community. Leadership seminars and team-building programs now sometimes reference the philosophy directly. Not every borrowed use fully honors the original depth of the idea, and that's a fair criticism. But the core concept keeps resurfacing because it answers a question many cultures still wrestle with. How much of who we are is actually built by ourselves alone versus given to us by others? Western philosophy has often leaned toward individual identity as the clear starting point. Ubuntu offers a genuinely different starting point, one built outward from relationship first. One well-known application of Ubuntu shows up in how some South African courts work. Restorative justice programs bring people together in structured, carefully supervised conversation. The goal isn't only consequence, it's understanding, accountability, and repair where possible. That approach draws directly on the belief that harming someone damages a shared humanity. Ubuntu also shapes something as ordinary as how neighbors handle a shared water pump. Resources like this are often managed collectively, with disputes settled through group discussion. Nobody owns the solution alone. The whole neighborhood works out the fairest way forward. In townships and rural villages alike, informal support networks run on this same logic. A family facing hardship rarely needs to ask for help directly or explicitly. Neighbors typically notice and quietly begin offering food, childcare, or a little money. It isn't charity in the formal sense. It's simply what belonging is understood to mean. There's a well-known example of Ubuntu economics, the Stockville, a savings club where members pool money and take turns receiving the full amount. Millions of South Africans belong to one, treating a neighbor's turn to collect the pot as seriously as their own. The traditional Zulu greeting captures the same spirit. Sawubona, meaning I see you, is met with the reply, Sikona, we are here. Even the word Ubuntu itself is built from Ubu, the state of being, and NTU person, hinting at humanity as something continuously created together. Global businesses and universities have started studying Ubuntu specifically as a leadership model. Neither framing is simply right or wrong. They're different lenses for the same basic question. But Ubuntu's version carries a specific, practical gentleness that resonates widely. It suggests that isolation isn't just lonely, it's treated as somewhat incomplete. And that connection isn't a nice extra layered on top of life. It's part of life's foundation. There's real, everyday evidence of the philosophy in small Southern African gestures. A greeting that translates roughly to, I see you, acknowledging someone's full presence. A meal instinctively stretched to include one more unexpected person at the table. A community quietly closing ranks around a family going through a difficult stretch. None of these are treated as remarkable acts of charity. They're simply how things are done. So step back and consider what this old philosophy is really offering the rest of us. Not a rejection of individuality or personal effort or personal achievement. Just a gentle reminder that none of those things happen in true isolation. Every skill you have was taught by someone. Every value you hold was shaped by someone. Ubuntu simply asks people to notice that fact and to live a little more generously because of it. It reframes generosity too in a genuinely useful way. Helping someone else isn't really a sacrifice of your own well-being. It's treated as an investment in the very humanity you're both quietly sharing. You don't need to speak Zulu or Xhosa to borrow a small version of this idea. Just a willingness to notice how much of your own life was built by other people. And a little more generosity offered back, not as a debt, but as simple, ordinary reciprocity. A circle of linked hands doesn't need to be large to carry the whole idea. Even two people choosing to show up fully for each other are practicing a small version of Ubuntu. The philosophy doesn't ask for grand gestures or sweeping social change from any one person. It asks for something smaller and more repeatable. Notice each other and act accordingly. That instinct, repeated across a whole community, quietly becomes a way of life. Not because anyone announces it, but because everyone simply keeps choosing it together. A child in a Southern African village grows up genuinely raised by many hands, not because their own parents are absent, but because raising a child was never meant to be solitary. That child learns, early and without needing to be told directly, a simple, lasting lesson.
You are never really facing the world entirely alone, even on your hardest days.
I am because we are. 4 small words, carrying an entire way of living inside them. A reminder that humanity was never really meant to be built in isolation in the first place.
Not a rule imposed from outside, but a truth quietly lived out, one relationship at a time.
And carried forward, gently, by every hand that ever chose to reach for another.